What We Can Know is the latest novel by author of Atonement, Ian McEwan. So I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about What We Can Know. Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is Spineless Books, your one-stop spoiler-free shop for all things audiobook. I've never read Atonement, but I know Ian McEwan is a very highly regarded author. I was looking at a website that had some recommendations for books, and truth is, I had read the majority of them, but they were all books that I liked, so when I saw What We Can Know on the list and thought, I haven't read that one, I bet it's a good pick for me. And turns out I was right. Or maybe it's more accurate to say the list was right. I've seen this book categorized a number of ways, and one of the ways I've seen it categorized is that it's a thriller. I don't know that I would quite put this in the thriller category, but it most definitely had some plot points that I didn't see coming, and an element of thriller vibe, sort of on a light scale. The narrative structure of the book is really pretty critical to the story. There are two parts to it. One is set in 2100 in the not-too-distant future, and the other takes place in 2014 in a time that we are obviously familiar with. In 2100, we follow Tom Metcalf. Now, he is a scholar, and he is a poetry scholar very specifically, and his life's work has been to find this one particular poem that is considered one of the greatest works of art ever written. Now, here's the thing. In our present-day timeline, there has been catastrophic climate change. So this work has been lost, and the crazy thing is, it's largely regarded as the best poem ever written, and no one has read it. At least no one who's alive in Tom Metcalf's time. One of the small things in the book that I really enjoyed was as they speak about the sort of climate disaster that takes place around the time we are familiar with, there's a lot of very subtle but biting commentary about the way we live now that kind of foreshadows why this climate change has happened. It's not a key plot point in the book as far as things that Ian McEwan goes into, but it is something that sets up why in 2100, 2014 is essentially lost history. So Tom Metcalf is making his life's work about finding Francis Blundy's great poem to his wife Vivian. And this poem is so highly regarded, which is crazy considering literally no one has read it. In fact, no written records exist that they are aware of, because it was read out loud as a birthday gift for Vivian, and then no one knows what happened to it. Now, the second part of the story is really cool in that it's actually what happens. It's what leads up to the poem, it's why the poem is written, it's where the poem goes. You learn all of the things that Tom Metcalf would pretty much kill to know in 2100, but some things he does get to know and other things he doesn't. The book features dual narrators, with David Rintoul narrating the first half of the book as Tom Metcalf. I don't really have any complaints about David Rintoul, but he did a great job and he was really solid. In the second half of the book, when we switch to Vivian's perspective, it's narrated by Rachel Bavidge, and I actually think she was excellent. Vivian is a morally gray character, and I was really impressed with Rachel Bavidge's ability to portray all of the ups and downs of her emotion, and when she was sort of indifferent and when she was really serious versus when she was being potentially vindictive. So that character to me had a lot more depth, and it makes sense when you read the story that this is really who the story centers around, even though Tom Metcalf is the star of the first half. Without Vivian, you don't have Tom Metcalf. I don't always think that you need dual narrators for a book like this, but I do think in this case it really helped push the difference in perspective to have the narrators be completely different people. It made it much more believable given that they're supposed to be set in different times. I was really impressed with Ian McEwan's ability to write both male and female characters. I'm always curious about an author's gender versus the gender of the character they're writing, and it's not to say that there aren't plenty of authors out there who do this really well, but there are definitely authors out there who don't do this well. Ian McEwan is not one of those people. I thought the depth and the way that he represented Vivian Blundy were really pretty impressive, and I really liked the voice he gave her. I liked the voice of all of his characters, as a matter of fact. I think that was one of the strengths of this book. When it comes down to it, so many of the characters in this book are morally gray that I think what I would say this book is really about is where do you draw the line? When does it become, for you personally with your own moral code, too much? And when do you hit the point where you have to say that's enough? I think we really understand that about the characters in this story, and I know Atonement deals a little bit with that as well, so I'm really looking forward to that book. Again, there are parts of this book that sort of read as a literary thriller, kinda. I don't think that's its strength in my opinion, but I do think this is a really great book that talks about how things become historically important, how the history differs from what actually happened. And in this book, the idea that we get to learn the historical significance of something and then learn its actual true story, I found that to be a really cool perspective. I really loved Vivian as a character. She was totally complex. She did some things that were completely detestable, yet she really knew who she was. And that was interesting. To ride along with somebody who I sort of didn't like, but I was also rooting for, was a very, very interesting place to be in as a reader. And I really respected that about Ian McEwan's writing. I sat down and I thought about what I wanted to rate this, and I was sort of between a 4 and a 5 and a 4.5, and I definitely don't think this book deserves only a 4. It was stronger than that for me, but for some reason it wasn't quite rising to the level of a 5. So I settled on 4.5. It's really an excellent read, and I would recommend it to pretty much anybody, but I do think you have to be ready for the sort of slow burn, and it's almost just as much a character study as it is a plot-driven narrative. I think this one is going to stay with me for some time, and it's going to be something that I'll think about and will ultimately want to discuss, probably with a book club. Without a doubt, this book made me interested in reading more Ian McEwan, and I will definitely be picking up Atonement, but I'd love to know if there are other books of his that you would recommend, or perhaps other authors who you think he is similar to, because this style of writing I thought was very high quality. It's interesting because it wasn't a particularly entertaining book, yet the writing held me in there the entire time, and there were a few moments where I really wanted to know what was going to happen next. So let me know in the comments what you thought if you've read it, but remember, you might love what I hate and hate what I love, so make your own opinion, but thanks for listening to mine. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. See you next time.